Hey Book Dragons, I'm really glad you joined me today. Whether you're new here or a returning viewer, I appreciate you checking in with me. I'm doing a book review today for The Big Four by Agatha Christie. I've been doing a Poirot read-along with my good friend Mona Lisa over at Mona Lisa Reads, and this was the next book in the series in terms of when they were released. I had a really good time with this book, and I figured it's time to do a book review for it. So let's get right to the nitty-gritty. Let's talk about what the book is about and go from there. The Big Four finds our famous Belgian detective and his trusty sidekick, Captain Hastings, as they become aware of a mysterious organization known as the Big Four. Throughout the story, there are smaller cases that Hercule Poirot is called in to consult on that give him a deeper look into what this organization is all about. So it kind of feels like a collection of short stories in a sense, but all the stories are interconnected and eventually lead to a big climax at the end of the book and a big reveal. And as they solve these cases, it becomes very clear over time that the Big Four is a worldwide cabal overseen by four main figureheads. And those figureheads are, of course, called the Big Four. And I think this is the most international of Hercule Poirot's cases, and it had a very different feel than some of his other cases. And that's not a bad thing, but it was really interesting to see Agatha Christie go this direction with Hercule Poirot. His cases have been much more localized in the past. And there's even a recurring character from some of the previous Hercule Poirot books. If you're reading along in the series, you will see another recurring character in this book, besides Captain Hastings, of course. And the signature Poirot style is there. He's always at his arrogant best, chanting about his abilities and the strength of his little gray cells, and making chiding, deprecating remarks about Captain Hastings not using his little gray cells and not really knowing what's going on. And you kind of feel bad for Captain Hastings after a while in this book, because it's like, man, don't be so hard on the poor guy. Not everyone can be Hercule Poirot, after all. It's definitely something that you see in the other books that feature these two characters, and it's always a pleasure to watch their interactions together. And this is told from the first person of Captain Hastings as he's recounting basically journal entries, very similar to how Dr. Watson did for Sherlock Holmes. It's that type of narrative, second-person perspective, writing about what's happening, and it flows really well. It's a really engaging story and a very quick read as well. Now, this was a little bit different from typical Agatha Christie stories, though, in that there's not necessarily a really major twist. It's more predictable than some of her other stories, other than the twists of finding out who each member of the cabal is. It has a very linear plot. You know exactly where it's going. You know that we're going to end up with this big showdown with the Big Four at the end of the book. And there's other things that were a little bit predictable as well. Some choices that Agatha Christie made with Hercule Poirot and certain reveals about him in a certain part of the story. It was really quite predictable, and that's not something you expect for Agatha Christie. You expect to be just completely thrown for a loop. And that's not to say that she didn't do that with this book, but it wasn't done as well as some of her other books. So I still very much enjoyed the story, and the ending did quite surprise me. Even though there was a reveal about Hercule Poirot early on in the story, about certain things from his past, the way it got resolved at the end of the book was quite surprising. I wasn't expecting that, so that was a good thing. But overall, it finished just how I expected it to, and I thought it was fine. It was a great book. I can't really think of anything that I didn't like about the book, except for maybe the fact that it was a little bit predictable, which is not normal for Agatha Christie. So it's really not a big deal, though. I ended up putting this in my hoard, just like I do most of Agatha Christie's books. Some of her books have even gotten better than that for me. So all of her books are good, and some of them are great. This fell into the good category. I enjoyed it, and I would read it again, totally. I would probably have to have a few years absence from it before reading it again because I would remember most of it. But who knows with my memory? I am getting older, so maybe I wouldn't remember it after even a year. I don't know. I definitely think you guys should check this out if you like mysteries and you like Agatha Christie. If you have not read this book already, it's definitely worth your time reading. So I hope you will check it out. And until next time, guys, make sure you read more books, and I will talk with you soon. And I want to give a huge shout out to my patrons. Thank you so much for all the support you give my channel.